Hello everybody, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. Please let me know in the comment section where you guys are tuning in from. So I see there are already a couple of hundred of you, or 1,000. I lost, yeah, there's well over 1,000 people. I lost track of the comments. So thank you very, very much for the kind words. Just let me know where you guys are tuning in from so I can shout out your respective towns and villages and cities and whatnot. So we've got people tuning in from Nantucket. We've got people tuning in from South Carolina, from Canada, from Norway, from Toronto, from It's Going Too Fast, from Australia, from Palestine, from Los Angeles, from New York, from Nashville and Tennessee. We've got New York, we've got Texas, we've got Algeria, we've got Lebanon, Vermont. It's mostly Americans and people from Japan as well. So that's really good. But the whole planet is up here. Okay, that's good. It's going way too fast. I can't read it. But hello to each and every one of you. So yeah, I thought, I mean, you all know what's been happening with the news, obviously, right? It's Jesus. I mean, it's really wild. So I got kind of inundated with interviews and so on, you know, talking about my case, and so, you know, in about a month, I should find out what's going to happen, and I'll keep you guys posted. But let's talk about what's going on in Palestine. So I thought we could begin with this video. Well, it's a series of videos, as you'll see in a second. Okay, give me a moment to pull these all up and make sure they're in order. Okay, yeah. So very, I mean, they really, quite frankly, speak for themselves. Okay, these videos. So I'm about to show you a couple of videos that were filmed roughly about 24 hours ago, and these were filmed in Gaza at the Al-Aqsa hospital. Now, keep in mind, this is not the first time this hospital is attacked. It's been attacked, I think, at least 6 times, you know, since roughly March. And what I'm about to show you, I mean, it's just so awful. So just so we're clear, these are people who are sheltered outside the hospital. They're people that are in displacement tents. They're people who've lost their homes. They've got nowhere else to go. That means Israel has blown up their houses or told them to leave their houses, and you know, they've just been shoved around Gaza from one end to the next. Basically, at the end of the day, they've got nowhere else to go, and they're sleeping outside in tents. Okay, and this is one of the scenes that unfolds. So you can just about make out the silhouette of someone there, okay? Begging for help. And let me blow up this image for you so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. This is a frozen still from that exact same video, okay? And you'll be able to see it in higher quality. So you can see that they're still hooked up to the IVs. Right, this person is still hooked up to the IVs. It's a teenage boy, actually. Name is Shaban. I mean, you can see the size of those flames. Those flames are enormous, right? You have to imagine that if you get that close already at 1, 2, 3 meters, you can feel the heat of those things. They're absolutely enormous. There's nothing you can do at this point, right? And the people in the video are saying as much. I mean, I've watched this film from several people, and they're just screaming because they can't do anything, because they can't help anyone, right? So you have, I think, 50 injuries. 50 was the number of injuries, and 5 people who died, including Shaban. Okay. I mean, the skin is I don't know how the quality is coming across on your end, but you can see the skin dripping off the arm. People being cooked alive. You know, that's Israel defending itself again, right? Israel defending itself, cooking people alive. We have a name for that. You know, we also call that a Holocaust. When you burn people, you know, you engulf them in flames, you kill them in fire. That's called a Holocaust. Literally a Holocaust, literally. But, you know, in the very essence of the term. And there's more footage. There's a girl, you know, who's walking out with her hair on fire. I mean, it's just really, you know, really messed up. And this is what one person had to say. I'll kind of interpret or translate for you as we go along.
شفت الناس بتنحرق قدامي. أقسم بالله العظيم. شفت الناس بتنحرق قدامي. والله ما حدا قدر يسوي إشي.
So they say, I saw people burned alive in front of my eyes. I swear to God, no one could do a thing.
أقسم بالله الراجل والمرأة والبنت الصغيرة بنحرقوا قدامي. والله.
You know, men, women, a small girl burnt alive in front of my eyes, before my very eyes.
والله العظيم أقسم بالله قدامي انحرقوا قدامي طلعوا روحهم قدامي.
They were burnt in front of my eyes. Their souls, you can see their souls departing their bodies. He basically means they ascended, they died.
على مرأى عيوننا كلنا، على مرأى الصحافة والإسعاف والدفاع المدني والنازحين والأطفال والنساء والشيوخ انحرقوا قدامنا. والله ما حدا قدر إنه يسوي شيء، ما حدا قدر يقدم ويجيبهم. حاولنا بس ما قدرنا.
He said, call everyone. Call the civil defense, call the ambulance workers, the medics, call the journalists, call the whole world to come and see. They were burnt right in front of us and we couldn't do a damn thing.
النار كانت قوية لدرجة إنه ما حدا قدر يقدم ويسحبهم من قلب النار. انحرقوا وهم أحياء. الناس انحرقت وهي أحياء.
People burnt alive. We couldn't do anything. The flames were too big. Flames so big we couldn't get anywhere near them. This is what it looks like. You know, I mean hold on, I'm going to try and mute the music. I don't know if I've gotten this actually without it, if it will play now or not. But basically, I mean, the whole place just burnt up. And this is not the first time they attacked the hospital. I mind you, it's I've lost count. I was shocked the first time they attacked it. You guys remember they said that there was you know, they have these evacuation orders. They tell people you have to get out of the hospital. Well, how do you just get up and take everyone out of the hospital? How do you do that? You can't do that. It's a logistical nightmare. Never mind a medical one. And so, you know, they would just think the Israelis just wouldn't care. They'd just go and bomb the hospital. And the first time that happened, which is already, I mean, a year ago now, I think we were all shocked, right? And everyone was saying and expecting that, you know, if you let this happen once, well, the Israelis would just keep doing it. And most hospitals now in Gaza are pretty much, you know, out of service. I mean, almost every single one, and correct me if I'm wrong, almost every single one of the hospitals in Gaza has been damaged or destroyed. Now, some of them get damaged, they reopen one wing or another wing, but this specific hospital does not have a burn, you know, a burn victim unit. They don't have the resources, they don't have the medicine, they don't have the staff required to treat people with any serious burns. Okay, so can you imagine now trying to find another one? I mean, and even if you could, what guarantee do you have they won't be bombed when they get there? You know, this is a never-ending cycle of, well, it's not really a cycle, it's just Israel just killing people, and then, you know, Western Western governments giving them the weapons to do it and making excuses for them. So there's that, I suppose. It's really messed up. This is the boy that I was telling you about, Shaban, the one who you can see being, whose arm you can see.
I'm a student studying software
Okay, so he was 19 years old.
engineer. In this barbaric starvation war, we have displaced 5 times so far. Now we are in Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital in the middle of Gaza, Deir al-Balah. I'm taking care of my family as I'm the oldest. I have 2 sisters and 2 little brothers and my parents. We live in a very hard circumstances, suffering from various things such as homelessness and limited food and extremely limited medicine. And the only things between us and the freezing temperature is this tent that we constructed by ourselves. I made this campaign to restart a new life in Egypt and evacuate. Thank you. Hello.
So he's now been killed with his mother, by the way, with his mother. Okay, so his mother was burned alive in the tent alongside him. I mean, just to give you an idea what these burns look like. And again, these are on people who survive or sort of survive. You shouldn't forget that you can catch or rather develop a lot of maladies as a result of intensive burns like this, right? Especially if they're untreated, especially, right? So you can go on to have additional problems. But in any case, I'll just play the rest of the video. I mean, Jesus Christ, you want to talk about pain? So that happened in the early hours of the 14th, right? Just about 24 hours ago. Just about 24 hours ago. It's I think it's one of those crimes that will stick in people's minds from this genocide, this image. It's very haunting, isn't it? And you can see the skin starting to come off the hand, right? Like on this girl's forehead, very similar, right? And he's alive. He is alive while this is happening. I mean, it's just I guess we should all shut up. Israel has to defend itself from these poor people that it's turned into refugees multiple times. I should remind you that people who live in Gaza, the majority of them already have similar experiences in the sense that their parents or grandparents lost their homes before, like in 1948. And then they went to Gaza from a different part of Palestine. So you have, in this case of Shaban, someone who, in all likelihood, right? I don't know if this is the case for him, but in all likelihood, as the statistics would indicate, in all likelihood, the grandparents were turned into refugees. Now he is again made into a refugee. And you have to keep in mind, if he's 19, that means he survived several Israeli campaigns, right? To put it mildly, campaigns. So, I mean, in 2021, 2014, I mean, I've stopped counting at this point. So, you survived all that, and then you survived a whole year of genocide just to be burned alive in a tent outside of a hospital, which is pretty much the safest place in any war zone. It's the hospital, right? It's the hospital. Any hospital. No, not enough. Not enough. He had to die so Israel can defend itself. Okay. You know, there's a way that Americans sometimes speak, which I find kind of funny, which is like, and you'll hear them go something like, they might not say explicitly, but they'll make it sound like, you know, once they stop supporting Israel, the world will go back to roses and everything will be fine. And that sounds really good, right? Because if this is what supporting Israel gets the planet, I mean, yeah, the world would certainly be a better place without that support. But people forget that the Americans have been going around and doing this stuff, exactly this stuff, around the planet for a very long time. For a very long time. I mean, can you really argue that Israelis or you know, Jews made the United States go and firebomb Korea or firebomb Vietnam? No. Who the hell can argue that or would argue that? And yet they did it. And I've no doubt that if people back then in Vietnam and in Korea had mobile phones like today, they would have filmed very similar scenes to this. They already had cameras in Vietnam, the television crews, and that was enough to gag. I'd know a thing about being gagged as a reporter. And that was enough to gag reporters forever, right? You want to go into a war zone, you have to go with the US Army. You're embedded. They're not letting you in. No, you go with the unit. You shit, eat, and sleep with the unit so that you don't open your mouth about the unit. You don't make them look bad. And so Margaret, who I'm very fond of, took the liberty of posting this link and kindly reminded us of what the United States does. Okay? So this is from Médecins Sans Frontières, from Doctors Without Borders. It's from 2015, okay? And it's an airstrike that the Americans conducted on a hospital in Afghanistan. Okay? And I'll just read you the one line that she quoted because it's enough. Our patients burned in their beds. Our medical staff were decapitated or lost limbs. Others were shot from the air while they fled the burning building. As far as I know, that had nothing to do with the Israelis, right? That was a good old American war, yes? Just so you remember. So we all remember. I think it's important to remember that, okay? It's not unique to Israelis. There's something going on here. I can't quite put my finger on it, but both of them do it. Yeah? After all, you can't accuse me of lying to you. I'm literally quoting the sources and showing you all the video. Yeah, it's all there. And I'm not being sarcastic. There's something, I can't quite put my finger on it, but both of them do it. And I don't know why they do it. I don't know why a human being would behave like this, but they do it. The Israelis do this and the Americans do this. Why do they do this? I don't know. Maybe it's not my job to figure that out, but I've given you the information. I've reported. Okay? This is real. And these images from Vietnam, you know, the napalm, I mean, come on. You think, what do you think napalm is? Napalm is like, you know, it's napalm. It's not just, it doesn't just give you cancer, you know, like, or your kids cancer, your unborn children the cancer, you know, decades later. No. It's not just about that. It sticks to you. It sticks to you and it burns and burns and burns and burns. Okay? So since we're on the topic of burn victims, it is very, 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 very important to reference the US napalm bombing campaign in Vietnam. Why am I saying this? I'm not saying this to, you know, to absolve the Israelis. No, not at all. After all, where are they getting the weapons from? It's the United States, right? But there's something going on. They just like burning people alive. It's not an opinion. They just do it. I don't know why. Maybe they don't like it, but they still do it, right? They do it. I don't know why they keep doing this. And it's got nothing to do with necessarily being Muslim or Arab, because how can you call the Vietnamese Muslim or Arab or the Koreans? And yet they firebomb them. I don't know what's going on. And keep in mind, the effect this has on, Vietnam is, what do you think of when you think of Vietnam? Jungle, right? It's got a tropical climate, and you're destroying all of that beautiful green with Agent Orange. So never mind the human beings also, it's the whole environment is getting polluted and all that crap is getting sucked in the soil. These are things that have to be mentioned. And in Gaza's case with white phosphorus and so on, it's also going to seep in the soil and seep in the Mediterranean. So you see there's something going on. In any case, that image from last night, that particular frame that I showed you of Shaban, haunting, absolutely haunting. It's a Holocaust. What's happening in Gaza is a Holocaust. It is a Holocaust in every sense of the term, in every sense of the word. So, let me talk to you about, it's quite difficult transitioning away from that, but let me show you something else, which is just, again, so Israeli. It's so Israeli. What am I talking about? I'm talking about shooting at the UN, of course. Now, that's something the Americans don't do, but the Israelis love doing. So, you guys are probably all familiar with what's been going on in the last couple of days. You've been hearing about it. Well, let me explain it to you, okay? Because it's one thing to say, okay, they're shooting at the UN, but let's take a deep dive. I really mean that. I want to show you exactly on the map where they're doing this, okay? So for the last couple of days, for the last week, the Israelis have been doing something that they excel at, which is firing at United Nations peacekeepers, right? And I'm talking specifically about UNIFIL. So UNIFIL is the mission that sits right between Lebanon and occupied Palestine, okay? And it's the United Nations interim force in Lebanon. And, it's... People think that it just sprung out of nowhere. And I was so bemused by these headlines that you see in the Washington Post and in CNN saying, what is UNIFIL? Imagine how dumb your viewership have to be for you to even publish that headline. They don't really sound like the most informed people about the Middle East, do they? But in any case, it's been there, okay, it goes back at least 40 years. My parents were serving in UNIFIL, both of them, right? You see the blue helmet behind me? Yeah. So that one's been in Lebanon. And what the Israelis have been doing, and they've been doing this for a long time, and I'll go back in time in a second, is firing at the UN. And they've been doing this in such a calculated way, okay? So I'll go through them day by day, and I'll show you the perimeter map and everything, all right? But just again, sorry, I got sidetracked for a second. I was talking about why they set up the mission in the beginning. So it has a mandate since 2006, which is UN Security Council Resolution 1701. That one is specifically about the 2006 war, okay, July war. But before then, the whole point was to keep, basically some kind of a buffer between Israel and Lebanon without defining an actual border, because neither side agrees on a border between each other. You remember the maritime border issue. That's also related to this whole thing, is that Israel doesn't have diplomatic ties with Lebanon and vice versa, right? So they don't even recognize each other as countries, never mind agree on what, where to slice the border in the sea nor on land. So with the Lebanese civil war, with Israel invading Lebanon in 1978, I mean, you've had a real reason to have UNIFIL in there, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's the deadliest UN mission in terms of peacekeepers lost. What is the number exactly? 326 they've lost. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's the deadliest UN mission anywhere. And in any case, let me show you on the screen with this week's attacks where they've been firing exactly on the perimeter. Okay, so here you can see they've carved it up into several sectors. Yes. Now, the first time that the Israelis fired at UNIFIL was October 6th of this year. I'm talking about, right? Not in history, definitely not in history. But they released this statement on the UNIFIL website, okay? And what happened is that the Israelis were doing this in so position 652. So if you look down here, okay, this is the Irish sector, okay? Now, no one from the Irish sector got hit. No one was injured. No one got hit. Nothing. But still, all right. Again, I'll zoom out for you just so you can see that where we are on the map over here. Okay, bottom right corner. But that's the first point where the Israelis started firing. Okay. And you know, the UN typically, of course, they don't really mention what's going on, blah blah blah. They just say we're concerned and all this and that. They use all this vague language, but then it starts getting much more precise as the days go by. So I'll fast forward from October 6th now to October 10th. Okay, now here they're saying this morning 2 peacekeepers were injured after an IDF Merkava tank fired its weapon toward an observation tower at UNIFIL's headquarters in Naqoura. So that's, again, we're going to go from the bottom right corner to the bottom left corner, all the way over here. That's where the UNIFIL headquarters are, okay? See where my mouse is? I don't know if you can see where it is, but it's over here, okay? So an Israeli tank fired at an observation tower. Now, if I'm not mistaken, just to get the nationalities in the right order, because I tweeted this and I'm just gonna refer back to my own tweet. So the first day it was 2 Indonesian soldiers. All right. So the first day, those 2 soldiers that they're talking about that fell out of the observation tower and went to hospital, they were Indonesian. Okay. Then the Israelis fired on UN position 131 in Labune, which is hold on, 131 is down there. Okay, so you see, it's not very far from Naqoura. It's not very far from their headquarters. It's just right there. Okay, and then they injured 2 Sri Lankan soldiers. Okay, and you can see also from the statement that they struck the entrance to the bunker where peacekeepers were sheltering. They damaged vehicles. They damaged the communication system. And then an IDF drone was observed. Sorry, excuse me. An IDF drone was observed flying inside the UN position up to the bunker entrance. Do you know why? Do you think because the IDF give a crap about the peacekeepers? No. They want to make sure that they're hitting them. That's why. I mean, it's so in your face, you know. It's such an Israeli thing to do. It's like, we were going to hit you, and we want you to know it was us. We want you to know it was us for good measure. Okay, so let's recap. An Israeli tank. I mean, you really have to be a lunatic. You really have to be a lunatic to behave like this. They fire with a tank. They fire. I'm sorry, it's just wild. They fired at the headquarters. It's not even like a random outpost. It's at the headquarters. Like, we want you to know. Okay, and they hit an observation tower as well. They injured 2 Indonesian soldiers. They hit another position, injured 2 Sri Lankan soldiers. So if you're counting, that's 4 injuries, okay? And then they hit a bunker entrance where they know that peacekeepers are sheltering inside the bunker. So, you know, hypothetically, if you hit the bunker entrance well enough, just so I'm not misunderstanding anything, just logically, if you are firing you know, with live ammunition at a bunker entrance, and you know that there are people inside the bunker. Why would you do that? I mean, I'm guessing so you could entomb the people in the bunker. That would, you know, that strikes me as something someone this loose and kind of unhinged would want to do, right? Because you're firing at the UN at this point. So do you sound like someone who would want to entomb peacekeepers inside of a bunker? Yes, you do. Yes, frankly, you do. That sounds exactly like something you would want to do. So again, they damaged vehicles and a communication system. I mean, what is that at this point, right? You're firing at the soldiers themselves. So, and then they fly a drone up, you know, to kind of like film everything, right? So here, in addition to that, they also fired at the position's perimeter monitoring cameras. So every post has its own cameras, especially today. Everything's become a lot cheaper since they originally set up UNIFIL. You know, they basically, again, think of the precision that you're using to fire at these cameras. You know, it's very, very vindictive and calculated, and you're trying to send a message. You're basically saying we don't want you here, and we don't want you to even breathe, and we don't want you to watch us, and we don't want anyone who's left alive after you to watch us either. We don't want any images beaming back. Does that sound like something that the Israelis would do based on the fact that they kill journalists? Yes, it does, because they decapitate journalists, they silence journalists, they love doing that, right? So that sounds like something. And after all, they're shooting at the perimeter cameras. It's very, very, very specific, right? Not one, all of them. Yeah. They also fired at, this is an even funnier one. I mean, if it can get funnier, they fired at so UN position 132A. All right. So that's all the way over here, the bottom left corner, the far left corner. Okay. 132A. And why is it funny? It's funny because it's used, okay, in the Ras Naqura, which is used as a tripartite meeting area. Okay, so basically, that was their kind of nail in the coffin of saying we're done cooperating with the Lebanese side and with the UN. So we're firing exactly at the place where we all meet, all three of us, just to kind of show you that we don't want to meet anymore. Right? I mean, that's the conclusion that one could draw from this behavior. If you need to draw one at all. I mean, it just sounds unhinged, right? But specifically, why are they shooting at the soldiers, at the cameras, and at the tripartite meeting area? You know, I think these things have some meaning behind them. Would you agree with that assessment? In any case, going back, you know, this is, so now October 11th, okay? October 11th. That's when they hit the two Sri Lankan soldiers. And then here it just gets even funnier and funnier. They bring a caterpillar. Do you know what a caterpillar is? Okay, a caterpillar is not the bug. Look, I'll just look that up for you. IDF caterpillar. It's not a bulldozer, but it's you know, it's basically for clearing rubble. Okay, so I mean, they have different variants of it, but the D9 is the most typical one. Okay, they can also hammer things from the back, and in any case, you know, it's used most commonly for destroying roads and towing tanks out of Gaza. That's what it's used for. When I say destroying roads, you heard that correctly. The Israelis like to destroy roads after they raid the West Bank. Okay, so it's an armored bulldozer, to be more precise, but that's what it is. And just look at, going back to the statement, they brought one of these things up to a T-wall. Okay, T-wall is one of those concrete shaped T-shaped concrete walls. Okay, this is exactly what it is. So you'll see these outside of perimeter. If you've ever been to Berlin, you've seen a Berlin Wall. That's what it looks like. Okay, it's one of those things. Okay, it's freestanding. So they bring one of these armored bulldozers. This is on October 11th. The Israelis bring one of these beasts up to the T-walls on the UN base, and they start destroying it. And why? So that tanks can go in afterwards. I mean, you really can't make this up. Look, several T-walls at position 131 fell when an IDF Caterpillar hit the perimeter and IDF tanks moved in the proximity of the UN position. I mean, it's just like it's like a movie, you know. You could make a movie out of this, you know. You really could. It's so insane. It's so wild. It's so wild, really. And my favorite part out of all of these, I guess, is certainly this one, right, with the T-walls. I would have to say that the sight of that is just so ridiculous and outrageous. Now you have someone, I think this was from an Irish peacekeeper, who shared a photograph where you can see the Israeli tanks nearby. This is not from the, I don't believe this is from the same date, because the Irish are in a different sector, right? So, and they specifically said it was 131. Yeah, no, that was not an Irish. So I'm correct. It's not the Irish sector, but nevertheless, when the Irish were getting hit, one of them took a photograph. You can see in white, you've got the APCs and the regular Jeeps. Those are UN in white. And these are the Merkava tanks. So they basically just surrounded the base. Now, you know, there's only two conclusions I can draw from this. One, they're either just there to kind of harass the UN, which makes sense because, again, they've been doing this for a long time. Or they wanted to use them as, what's the term again? Something human shields? Yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds about Israeli, doesn't it? But no, I'm serious. I mean, the photograph is real. It's legitimate. Look, even the BBC posted it, which is astonishing, right? These are Israeli tanks. They have surrounded a UN base. Make of that what you will. The point is they're definitely not allowed in the goddamn base. I can guarantee you that. So in any case, here are some photos of the UN peacekeepers being treated for their wounds, for their injuries, after being hit by Israeli fire, by Israeli. I mean, it's unbelievable, really. Look at the hole. Look at the size of that thing. Jesus, it's a miracle they were just wounded. Honestly, it's a miracle. It really is. So in total, you have 5 peacekeepers. There's a 5th one. Don't know what nationality, and we just know that they were hit with a bullet. Now, based on the information that I've given you just from the last week, if you had to guess who shot that 5th peacekeeper, kind of narrows down the options, doesn't it? My guess would be Israel and Israel. Now I can tell you, you know, just as an anecdote from what my parents have seen serving in that exact area, in that exact mission, that the Israelis fire at the UN. Okay. Now, again, my parents were not soldiers. They were in the civilian support staff. Okay. So again, you look at the UN's own graphics. These are how UN peacekeeping and observer missions are usually divided up. You have a military part component and a civilian component, right? Doesn't matter, right? If you're in the base, you're in the base. So regardless, going back to my point, that just as an anecdote, I can tell you that. And it's not even just in UNIFIL in Lebanon. They do it also in Andof, which is in the Golan Heights, where Syria is occupied by Israel. Right? But that would just be a personal anecdote. Thank God, I guess, although we prefer this not to be the case, but that there's actual evidence of it, right? Because who would believe this? It's so wild. No, the Israelis are actually this wild. And as a matter of fact, I was just doing some light reading, right as we were about to begin the show. Lo and behold, look what I found. I found a publication from Human Rights Watch from 1997. Okay? And this is really good. Are you ready for what I'm about to read to you? Okay, so give me a second over here. Okay, so this is an investigation into Israel's Operation Grapes of Wrath, okay? And they write here that yeah, so they divided up 8 attacks in South Lebanon by Israeli forces, and one of the categories of these 4 categories is indiscriminate attacks on the vehicles of UN peacekeepers, which were part of a pattern during Operation Grapes of Wrath of Israel's attempt to impede. Hold on, let me switch this up so you can see the window. Okay, of Israel's attempt to impede UN peacekeepers' delivery of humanitarian assistance to civilians who were unable or unwilling to leave their homes. Another pattern, another category, all right? So already 2 out of the 4 categories involve attacking the UN. Here's the second one. Artillery attacks near and on UN bases where civilians were openly sheltered, and the use during such attacks of anti-personnel shells designed to explode above the ground and spread shrapnel over a wide area in order to maximize casualties. Lovely, right? Lovely. Here you can see just down here, when they're talking about April 18th, as an example, the IDF fired, the IDF in advance of attacks near positions. I'm sorry, I lost my spot. First, the artillery was fired without the customary warnings issued by the IDF in advance of attacks near positions of UN peacekeepers. They're referring specifically to UNIFIL, right? That's the exact same mission. This is back in 96. Okay? Second, the attack continued even after UNIFIL notified the Israeli military that the base was being shelled. Third, and perhaps most egregiously, Israel's claims that it had no knowledge that hundreds of civilians were being sheltered at the base are simply not credible. I mean, you know, it's like bombing a UN school in Gaza, right? They just claim that they just, oh, well, you know, they'll make something up. But in this case, it's more egregious because you actually have UN soldiers with UN helmets, with UN flak vests, with weapons. You know, they're there. They've got flags, everything. It's very different from actually just a UN school in Gaza. Forgive me, perhaps I should have formulated that a bit better. It's very different. It's even worse, actually, because you can, you know, the decals. That's the word I'm looking for. The markings, the symbols on a UN peacekeeping outpost or observer outpost are so much more plentiful and clear than, you know, just saying a UN school. And it's not like bombing a UN school is any better, right? But nevertheless, just so we can make clear of how intentional Israel is being when it's firing on UN positions. And, you know, they'll do other things. I mean, they don't need to necessarily fire artillery shells or things that kill you. They can fire smoke at you. I mean, you know, they'll just pop smoke. You know, these are countermeasures they put on the tanks. Now, I saw one tweet. You'll forgive me. I forgot to read you this one from UNIFIL from you know, just yesterday. They used chemical weapons, apparently, or what appeared to be chemical weapons against the UN. Yes, you heard that correct. I mean, you know, if you're a force that just shoots at the UN, why stop? Why not graduate to chemical weapons? So this is a tweet from UNIFIL themselves. Okay, I'm pulling it up on the screen, and it's dated October 13th. Despite putting on protective masks, 15 peacekeepers suffered effects including skin irritation and gastrointestinal reactions after the smoke entered the camp. Okay, so this is smoke fired by Israel. The peacekeepers are receiving treatment. So that's not good, right? Because if you're putting on gas masks and or protective masks and you're still experiencing weird skin irritation, that indicates that, you know, this is some really nasty stuff that they're using. And again, just even if it's regular countermeasures, just, you know, flares, smoke on a tank. Why would you pop your smoke on UN troops in the first place? Like, there's no logic behind any of this. There's no excuse behind any of this. And this is nothing new. What I'm reading to you happened on the October 13th, but, you know, again, I can get you stories from my parents that are from 30, 40 years ago. The same crap by the same people in the same mission. They've never changed. They've been doing this over and over and over again. Why? Why are they like this? Why are they like this? Why are they like this? And so I'll play you a video. I'll play you a video from Mr. Netanyahu in just a second. But I thought we should continue with some more reading. Because if you think that no one's been killed by now by UNIFIL, well, you'd be wrong. You'd be definitely wrong. Okay? So the last incident that I can remember, this is in 2006. Okay? Israel killed, I think it was four UN peacekeepers. I forgot their nationalities. I think one was Austrian and another was Canadian. It was a mix of people, right? But they killed 4 UNIFIL peacekeepers in this exact same mission in Lebanon, in South Lebanon. Okay? And again, I don't know who has killed the majority of UNIFIL peacekeepers. I genuinely don't. I really don't know. But, you know, based on everything I've told you and what I know, I would assume the majority of them have been killed by Israel. But again, I mean, you know, does it have to be a competition at this point? I think it's not just the killing. It's all of the behavior, right? It's like basically, you know, the everything in it, everything in and between. I mean, it's all of the impunity, right? You don't have to necessarily murder a UN peacekeeper for it to be a violation of international law. This is the thing they have on their website, right? So again, and the irony of this is if you go and look at 2006, I think they called the Israelis like what was it? It wasn't even the UNIFIL base. I think it was the Undersecretary General. So not the Secretary General, but the Undersecretary General, the number 2. Personally telling them to stop firing, and they wouldn't listen. Well, anyway, that leaves me. That's a perfect transition to Netanyahu's video, who addresses his video to the Secretary General, right, the one right above. And this is what he says. So he's basically issuing a threat. It's a threat.
The charge that Israel deliberately attacked UNIFIL personnel.
I mean, after everything I've read to you, how can that be false?
The charge that Israel deliberately attacked UNIFIL personnel is completely false.
Okay, guys, let me apologize to Netanyahu. The Israelis accidentally shot all the perimeter cameras. They accidentally blew 2 Indonesian and 2 Sri Lankan peacekeepers, you know, onto the ground and injured them. They accidentally shot a 5th one, I think, and had to have surgery. They accidentally just rammed, you know, the T-walls with a bulldozer and then moved their tanks around it. They accidentally fired near Irish peacekeepers. All of this is just a giant misunderstanding, and I have no idea what I'm talking about.
It's exactly the opposite. Israel repeatedly asked UNIFIL to get out of harm's way. It repeatedly asked them to temporarily leave the combat zone, which is right next to Israel's border.
Yeah, just temporarily leave your homes. You can come back. We promise not to steal them. This sounds awfully familiar, doesn't it? It almost sounds like he's lying or something. No, Netanyahu wouldn't lie to us. Come on.
Combat zone, which is right next to Israel's border with Lebanon.
How dare these peacekeepers place their peacekeeping mission next to the combat zone? How dare they? Couldn't they go and put it on the moon? You know, I mean, how anti-Semitic of them. I mean, it's not like it has Lebanon in the fucking name. You know, that's what the L stands for in UNIFIL. No, God forbid. They should go put it, you know, on the moon. What is it doing there? How?
In fact, on the day that Israel began its ground operation next to our border with Lebanon, we asked them specifically, please leave this area so you're not harmed. Israel is not fighting UNIFIL.
Please leave this area so you're not harmed. This guy's he seems really confused. You don't ask the UN to leave so they're not harmed. That's not how it works. You don't fire at them. I don't know if someone explained this to him. I know the last time he was in New York at the UN, he was busy ordering an assassination. So, you know, maybe there was no time. I know in the heat of the moment, these things can get lost, but you can't tell the UN to just leave. It's not, and I don't know why he's addressing half of this to Guterres or either, because the Security Council is the one that mandates 1701, not the Secretary General. But okay, I'll let him finish.
Yeah, so you're not harmed. Israel is not fighting UNIFIL. It's not fighting the people of Lebanon. It is fighting Iran's proxy Hezbollah, which uses Lebanese territory to attack Israel. Hezbollah attacked Israel last year without any provocation on October 8th, a day after the Hamas massacre. And it's continued to attack us ever since by launching over 10,000 rockets and missiles at Israel. Hezbollah uses UNIFIL facilities and positions as cover while it attacks Israeli cities and communities. These attacks have claimed the lives of many Israelis, including yesterday. Israel has every right to defend itself against Hezbollah and will continue to do.
Hold on, I'm trying. Please forgive me, and I promise I'm not. I can't keep up with the lies. There's so many lies per word. It's not even per sentence, per word. It's really difficult. Wait, he said, hold on. In the beginning of the video, I'm just going back a minute. It's not that far. He says that Israel is not fighting UNIFIL. Okay, Israel is not fighting UNIFIL. But now it kind of sounds like you are. You know, I'm having a difficult time placing him.
And communities. These attacks have claimed the lives of many Israelis, including yesterday. Israel has every right to defend itself against Hezbollah and will continue to do so. We regret any harm done to UNIFIL personnel, and the IDF is doing its utmost to.
Well, why would you regret harm? You just said that they're sheltering your enemies. So I mean, I'm very confused. I don't know what to respond.
To prevent such incidents. But the best way to ensure the safety of UNIFIL personnel is for UNIFIL to heed Israel's request and to temporarily get out of harm's way.
Yeah, okay. So basically, it's another evacuation order, all right? It's another evacuation order, which is also known in the civilized world as a terrorist threat. But okay, you know, I think we should go back. We should go back to when he says that you know, Israel is not at war with UNIFIL and Israel is not at war with Lebanon, with the people of Lebanon. Because when I began telling you about all these attacks, and we ended up at the Human Rights Watch report, there's a reason I was reading to you from that report. Okay, here, this date. Okay, this date, April 18th, 1996. It's not just a random date. Okay, it's not just a random date. There's a very big massacre that took place in Qana. Okay. So by my count, if I recall correctly, they killed 100 and it was at least 100 civilians. I think the correct figure would be 106 civilians. And if you count the peacekeepers, I mean, they I'm just looking it up. 1 second. Yeah. So 106 killed. Jesus Christ. 106 Lebanese civilians killed. And the injured is almost a similar figure. It's 116 civilians and 4 UN peacekeepers injured from Fiji. So once again, you know, we have again, this video is mostly about the UNIFIL as a mission. Okay, so when I say forget the civilians, I don't mean like actually forget them, but I'm just saying put them aside a second, and just look at how, with or without civilians, with or without warning, with or without live ammunition, there's just like repeated, you know, pattern of just hitting the UN. They always have an excuse for it. And that's that's the bloodiest one. That's the bloodiest one. You have, I think, 800 people that were sheltering inside of that base at that time. 800. So they out of that 800, you have 106 killed and 116 wounded, including 4 peacekeepers, right? So that it's fascinating. No matter how far back you go, you can go back 10 years, you can go back 20 years, you can go back 30 years, 40 years, and you'll kind of find the same behavior by the Israelis. They don't seem to, they don't seem to care, really, do they? They don't seem to care. So, I mean, when Netanyahu is posting this video and he says, UNIFIL, get out of harm's way, I mean, I think it's a threat, right? Although, to be fair, he didn't issue a threat. He kind of just acted, right? He just went right for it. But there's another one that he did in Hebrew, and that one, he really mentioned Guterres' name, but he mentioned him by name. Let's play that one.
I'd like to appeal directly to the UN Secretary General. It is time for you to remove UNIFIL from Hezbollah's strongholds and from the fighting areas.
Well, once again, man, that's not how it works. The UN Secretary General doesn't pick up a phone and says, "Yo, Habibi, I need you to move your people away from the zone." No, that's the Security Council. Again, I know Netanyahu's a busy man, lots of people to kill. The Security Council, that means the US included, get together every year. They have to do this every year. Can you just somebody do the math for me? I'm not going to count how many years have passed since 78. I'm live right now. There's 3,000 people watching. I'm not going to do mental maths live, but what is it? 40? Yeah, almost 50 years. Okay, so every single time they have to go on and do this. The entire UN Security Council, the 15 members, have to get round the table and vote for this. How many times have they done that? Do you know with some of these peacekeeping missions, they'd have to go and do them. They would have to go and do them twice a year. I think with UNDOF they do it twice a year. Let me double check that one. Yeah. So in any case, my point is just that every year this is a yearly event, and they only just expanded. They did that last year, I think, with Look, I'm trying to pull up the resolution 1701, and it keeps switching to some crap I'm not clicking on. I'm sorry. Look at this. When did they expand that? 2006, right after the war. Okay, that's the last time they expanded it. Okay, every single member voted for that. Every single member. That includes the UK, that includes the US, and it includes the other permanent members, France, Russia, and China. Everybody voted for that. Can you see on the screen? My point here is just that the US was in favor, okay, of expanding the mission's mandate back in 2006. Why is the US now we have to come to a very tough question, right? Because we know what the Israelis are doing, but once again, I've sought with this stream perhaps to kind of, make your understanding of things a little different. Because it's very easy to look at the Israelis and say, oh, well, of course the Israelis will behave that way, so and so and so. And the Americans, as far as I can tell, the Americans don't have a habit of shooting at the UN. They really don't. I'm not saying that sarcastically. They really don't. Okay? The Israelis do, though. And only the Israelis. I can't really think of that many on the spot right now. But you have to ask yourself, why does the United States bother hosting the United Nations headquarters in New York? Why does the United States bother with the pretense of doing all this crap just to allow the Israelis to go ahead and shoot at UNIFIL. I can't quite put my finger on it. The best that I can come up with, okay, and this is, I'll tell you the same thing I've always said, is that the Israelis crave legitimacy. The Israeli Zionist project craves legitimacy. The Israelis don't join the UN because they like the UN or they care about the UN. Remember, our our great friend, the outgoing Israeli ambassador from New York. What did he say he wants to do with the UN building? He said he wants to erase it, right? Gilad Erdan. There he is, right? That's what he said he wants to do. That's just a few months ago. When was that? It was 2 months ago. It's 2 months ago. Okay? Remember, he said he wants to erase the UN building. It should be closed and wiped off the face of the planet. That's what he said. Okay? You know, Mr. Brick, Mr. Yellow Star, Mr. UN Charter Shredder, the works, Mr. Women in Iran. Okay? That's what he said 2 months ago. The UN building should be closed and wiped off the face of the earth. So, why do the Israelis bother with the pretense? Why? That's it. It's because they crave legitimacy. If you get rid of UN resolution 181, and that's a General Assembly resolution, not a Security Council resolution. It's not legally binding, but it's the partition of Palestine. If you get rid of that, the Israelis have no real footing. You know, they got nothing to stand on. They can't even point to that. And again, it's not even legally binding. They can't even point to that and say, look, you know, someone, God passed the resolution. So they have to play along. And if you go and you read what Ben Gurion wrote in 1937 to his son, he said any state, no matter how tiny, is good because it will serve as a stepping stone to taking more land. Those are his words. Okay? Those are his words. So go and read the letter to his son, 1937. So you understand why they come to the UN and why they play along. It's just so they have some kind of legitimacy. And of course, given the fact that the Americans are giving them weapons anyway, and the Americans host the UN headquarters, and the Americans also have a permanent seat on the Security Council, that covers them from having to actually, you know, respect and abide by any of the resolutions. Any. Because so far, I've only been talking to you about Palestine, and I've only been talking to you about Lebanon. If we, we look at 242, 497, these apply to Syria as well. They're still, you know, they concern Syria rather, and they apply to Israel, meaning get out of the occupied territories, return the stolen land, the Jerusalem law, the Golan Heights law are null and void, blah, blah, blah. You know, all of these things, the Israelis just they won't abide by them. So that every second that goes by, they are actively breaking the law. They're actively breaking international law because those are legally binding. Anyway, I think my point is well taken. The Israelis are completely unhinged. I mean, they've graduated, if I'm not mistaken, they've graduated this week to using chemical weapons on UN peacekeepers, which is really kind of like, you know, it's like, for the war criminal that's committed every crime, what crime is there left to commit, right? Seriously, it's a long list. It's really a long list. I don't even have time to go through all of it. It's too long. I don't need to. I don't need to. This is who the Israelis are. They fire at UN. They fire at UN staff. They blow up UN schools. You know, nothing they won't do. That's who they are. That's their legacy. All right. That's their legacy. So, in the meantime, before we proceed to the next segment, I'll just read a couple of your very kind emails and donations and comments. Hassan says we need you back ASAP. This was from October 7th. October 2nd or 2nd. I'm sorry. I am all the way back in at the top. I guess I better start there. October 3rd. This is from Rola. Thank you very much, Rola, for the generous donation. We've got another one. It's October 4th from American, who says, Salam, Richard. May Allah grant you ease. Likewise. Thank you very much. And we have another one. This is from October 10th from Afridi, who says, donation. Thank you. And now that I can't get to the bottom of it, so hold on. Marissa says, welcome back. Hope you're doing all right. Now, this one's from tonight. Thank you, Marissa. Likewise, and it's good to see you. Jerry says, donate. Thank you, Jerry. And we have another one from Kilich. Thank you. And we have another one from Ahmad, who says, thank you. Thank you to all of you. I'm very grateful. And there's actually, before I forget, there are 2 GoFundMes that I wanted to promote, not for myself, but for people from... give me a second. These are from Gaza, but one of them is from a doctor, and I've got to scroll a second to find it. They might be in the description already, actually, but I still wanted to scroll and get this one regardless. So yeah, I will post these in the I'm just it's funny because I see this Israeli spokesperson who's answering one of my tweets. It's very funny. Anyway, you know, I guess you could consider it in this sense, kind of like, you know, they just don't get it, really. They just don't get it. They never will. Anyway, thank you to everybody for the nice comments. I'm very grateful, and thank you. It's too many people to name, but I really appreciate it. So okay, back to Gaza now. We've got a couple more to do, right? We've got a couple more to do, but let's go back to Gaza quickly to talk about this. I mean, okay. Give me a second. There's quite a lot. There's quite a lot here. Right. You guys should be able to see that now. Okay. So, well, how to begin this one? I mean, I guess you could compare it to. I'll think of something in a second. Honestly, if I had to compare it to anything, I would think of it to the Einsatztruppen being sent in to kind of, you know, clean up the place, in the literal sense of the word, you know, the ethnic cleansing kind of clean up the place. So what they've been doing, the Israelis, for the last days in Jabalia refugee camp is that they've been really, like, you know, systematically just kind of going through and executing, bombing, just really wiping the place out. And you have to understand, you've got Jabalia, and then you've got Jabalia refugee camp inside of it. And they've not only cut off northern Gaza from southern Gaza, but inside of northern Gaza, they've cut off Jabalia camp from the rest of Jabalia, okay? And then Jabalia itself from the rest of northern Gaza, if that makes sense. I'll try and pull up a map as we're going through it, but it's done on purpose, and it's basically like, you know, a grid search, except you're doing a grid search and destroy, right? Really. I mean, look at this. Just look at the videos of it. Looks like colorized footage of Berlin in 1945, except, you know, you had people who were actually fighting in Berlin in 1945. You had armies against armies. It wasn't just, oh, there's one army and then they're like flattening a bunch of civilians. You understand the difference. I suppose Warsaw Ghetto would be more of a more of a correct comparison. Yeah. Lo and behold, look what Ahmed writes. The annihilation of Gaza Strip by the Israeli barbarians is quite similar to that of Warsaw by Nazi Germany. Do they not look similar? So, you know, this is from one of the men who is there, and I'll play the video for you. Listen.
The ground invasion, the situation in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip is very dangerous, especially in the cities of Jabalia, Beit Hanun and Beit Lahia, as these three cities have been under a brutal Israeli ground invasion during the past 9 days. During these days, the Israeli occupation forces have killed more than 300 people and they wounded more than 500 others. Bodies of more than 80 martyrs are scattered in the streets due to the inability of collecting them, as there is no fuel for ambulances and volunteers are unable to reach these places due to the heavy Israeli bombardment and quadcopter shooting. There is no water, no food, no fuel, no communication. The people there are starving and facing death from the Israeli bombing and from the starvation and the lack of medical services. The situation is very hard, as hospitals, there are 3 hospitals there which are partially operational, are facing the danger of shutdown because of the lack of fuel.
Let me continue on that note and read you. This is from Al Jazeera. So this is from one of their main correspondents in Gaza. It says many of the casualties are children and women. Here you can see on screen. Yeah, many of the casualties are children and women, and they are arriving at the hospital either in pieces or soaked in blood. According to Al Jazeera correspondent. To one Al Jazeera correspondent and Doctors Without Borders, Israeli snipers have been killing people trying to flee despite having issued evacuation orders. So they tell you to flee, and when you flee, they kill you. Some residents have decided to stay, not trusting the Israeli designated humanitarian safe zones that it attacked anyway. Israel's assaults have killed at least 200 people over the past week in the north, according to the head of the Palestinian Health Ministry. I saw a video of him, by the way, on Al Jazeera Arabic, where he was crying. And it says tens of thousands of families remain besieged inside the Jabalia camp, while UNRWA say some 400,000 people are trapped in the north. Okay, so if you look up at the map here that Al Jazeera have drawn, you see this is what's referred to the north of Gaza, right? And Jabalia refugee camp is, I mean, you know, it's really a killing zone. And I pause on the name because this is a refugee camp. But These are people that have been, living as refugees from one generation to the next. So I think that's lost on people a lot of the times. They'll say the name, but they don't really understand why it's called that, right? And you have tons more refugee camps, right, all across. I mean, in Gaza, right, Nuseirat and so on, and it's crazy because you've got people that have been displaced since 1948. They became refugees, then the children become refugees, then the children's children are also refugees, and then they not only keep the refugee status, but they are again once more internally displaced inside of Palestine, because they literally still are refugees, but now they've just become refugees a second time. I think that was important to point out, even though it's not, it's not proper to this massacre itself. But when you're telling people, as you can see on the left, grab your stuff and go, and then while you're complying with the order, we're going to shoot at you anyway. It's kind of like, well, people already did this once before. They did it in 1948, and you still shot at a lot of them, right? And many times over in the course of the last year, they've been, picking up this stuff, going one place, then they get told, no, you have to evacuate to this place. I mean, it's a never-ending game. Once you do it with the Israelis, once you accept the evacuation orders, you'll never stop evacuating, right? Because they're not evacuation orders. It's more akin to a terrorist threat, isn't it? When you spend 3 generations, I mean, forget one lifetime, 3 generations living like this. Jesus, Back to the latest atrocity, which is, taking place again right now inside of Jabalia camp. Medical crews and ambulances are also reportedly being hit. And here we ask Gideon Levy, what does Israel want? To occupy Gaza? What does Gideon Levy say? So he tells Al Jazeera the goal of the Israeli government appears to be to ethnically cleanse the north of Gaza by expelling all the Palestinians. Okay? So again, if I show you the map, okay? If I show you the map, look at the top of Gaza, what we're talking about. Okay? See what pops up? Got Jabalia, so Jabalia camp, and then Jabalia. And so north of Gaza is all of this. So they want to push all these 400,000 people down south. And even for the last year, I mean, if you've been stuck in northern Gaza, you've fared the worst of it, right? It's really been the worst in the north. Either way. And now they just made it a whole lot worse. You get me? Now they just made it a whole lot worse. So Gideon says Israel would like to see the northern part of Gaza empty of all its Palestinian inhabitants. Now we come back to what many Israelis have made no secret of, right? Making space to build settlements. Yes? I mean, it's really messed up, and I'm looking at some of these images here to show you, but some of them are really too graphic. You've got bodies piled up on top of bodies, just the only light is coming out of the tanks and the bulldozers. I mean, it's really, really screwed up. But some of the tweets that journalists have been writing there, I mean, look at this. Look at this one, for example. Okay. A number of my cousins among this night's martyrs. He tweeted this 13 minutes ago. 4 people were killed and 16 others injured in an Israeli bombing of a house in Jabalia refugee camp. Okay. I won't read the others, but you can see them on the screen just so we can focus on Jabalia. Okay. But look just look at the others. Just read them off of your screen. Okay. There's a colleague of his was killed 16 hours ago in Jabalia refugee camp. Look at the Israelis also going around and trashing the food, right? If the killing isn't bad enough, look at them trashing the food. Look at how they behave with the food.
תודה רבה על התרומה שנתתם לנו, הג'יהאד האסלאמי. כמה דם על הסכין, כמה דם, אח שלי היקר.
So they're going around house to house and kind of just destroying all the food, any semblance of aid they can find. I mean, and they're doing their usual thing where they put on women's clothes and or girls' clothes and
המודד? תראה את הבטן, יוצא לו הבטן. מה אתם אומרים? הוורוד יותר יפה לך.
נראה לי הוורוד יעשה לך ככה טוב.
ככה. עדיין, לך על הוורוד ותוסיף לו אחד כזה מלפנים.
מה עדיין?
So, again, there's some of these videos. I'm not quite sure if I can show anything, but I'll show you. It's a man holding a dead child in his hands. But I'll show you this one from UNRWA. Look at this. Look at the. It's just been burnt down. This is the health center in Jabalia. Okay. Again, a UN building. The logo is right there at the top. It's black from the smoke. This was posted just yesterday by the UN, by UNRWA. You got bodies in the street. I mean, if you took this and it looks like Warsaw Ghetto. It just looks like Warsaw Ghetto. If you hid the left half of the photo so you couldn't tell, and you made it black and white so you couldn't tell who it was from and what period, and just saw the bodies with the holes, you'd probably guess, you wouldn't be too far off, right? So this is what is going on in the camp, in Jabalia refugee camp. It's like, bit by bit, they're systematically just wiping the place out. This is a small refugee camp, just if you look at the, over the years, it's grown into a town, right? I mean, what is it? It's like 1.5 square kilometers in size. 1.5 square kilometers. It's minuscule. It's minuscule. And then I see this thing, which is really funny, from CNN. And again, you look at the way that they write this. And the headline says, "No food has entered northern Gaza since the start of October, putting 1 million people at risk of going hungry." Hold on, what do you mean no food has entered? Because again, why am I bringing this up? Because obviously, when people are the ones that are being killed in Jabalia, who are in the north, they've had it the worst out of everyone in Gaza. They've had it the worst, and that's really saying something, right? But why would you write "no food has entered northern Gaza" like as if the food has legs, or the food got lost, the food went bad? What do you mean no food entered Gaza? What I mean. You mean Israel is blocking food from entering Gaza? That's another way to write the headline. Or you could say Israel has been blocking food from entering Gaza every single day since October 1st. Since you want to put the date in there. I mean, I don't understand this kind of writing. You know, this passive, rubbish, garbage language. Because yeah, people are starving. People are definitely starving in Jabalia, most of all, right? But why would you write it this way? It's so, again, can't quite put my finger on it, but it sounds like, you know, someone trying to hide what's going on. Dishonest. 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 And of course, there's no mention of Jabalia. Weird. I can't find anything about Jabalia. They just mentioned northern Gaza. What about Jabalia especially? Because of the killing that's going on, right? This is published October 11th. What about there specifically? Why won't, or put it this way, right? Forget the killing, you know, the executions and the bodies laying in the street like this. Forget that. Forget that. Let's talk really just about food, okay? Just about food. Why not squarely lay the blame with Israel? No one else controls the crossings. It's not a lack of food, you know, a lack of donations from around the world. No. It's not because Gaza is arid, you know, it can't grow anything. It's not because people in Gaza refuse the food and are saying take it back. It's not because people in Gaza have no appetite. It's not because, you know, there was a hurricane that just appeared in the Mediterranean and just like swept all of the food away. Why is there no food entering? Why won't you name Israel? Why is Israel not mentioned anywhere? You know, it's not in a headline, okay? And you're saying, I mean, it's pretty serious, right? Because you admit 1 million are at risk of starvation. 1 million, right? So obviously it's very serious. I can't see, Israel's not here. What about here? No. Still can't see Israel. Nope. Is Israel here? No. Israel's not. Jesus Christ. I mean, it's not in the headline, not in the subheading. It's like, you know, they just want to mask it as much as possible. I don't think that's honest. I think it's extremely dishonest. I think this is like reading a shady contract or something. You know, I feel I'm being cheated, and I'm not even the one in Jabalia. I'm not even the one in Gaza, and I feel cheated. How can you not mention this? Something really off. Really off. Really off. With the way that these people report, or call this reporting. You know what I mean? So you have yesterday I saw a video. I don't know if I bookmarked it actually. I don't know if I bookmarked it, but it really now that I think of it, I think the guy really was. I think he really was in Jabalia. And I'm going to look that video up and I'm going to see if I'm going to find it. And you're going to give me a second here to just kind of... This is one of the images I was talking about, by the way. This one. This is just creepy as hell. See that? So this is from a journalist. He says, as I understand from my colleagues in Jabalia, the situation is unlike anything they've ever experienced. Dozens of bodies scattered across the streets. It smells death all over. Residents refuse to be displaced. Food nearly depleted. No medical services available. And you see that the only light coming out of there, with the exception of that window, but you know, there's no street lighting, nothing. It's the bulldozers and the tanks at night. I mean, it's a slaughter. It's a slaughter. It's really a slaughter. But I could have sworn that video I saw yesterday was from one guy standing in Jabalia, and he was saying basically, you know, just we don't want you to feel upset and we don't want you to feel sad, but do something. Just say something. Do anything. Even one video. Just share a video. Anything at all. You know? And I know it sounds like such a simple message. I know it sounds like so cliche or something, but I don't know, the way that it was in Arabic. So I'm trying to find the place where I bookmarked it. I'll get to it eventually, but the way he said it, and then right after that, I saw the burning, the footage from Al-Aqsa Hospital, the burning, and that was really a lot. That was a lot. In any case, well, I guess that video was more for me to interpret. I'm still looking for the link, but anyway, I'll find it and we'll look at it together later. But again, there's not much more we can do. Just to go back to that man's point, than to kind of, talk about what's happening and raise people's, just raise attention and open people's eyes, because I don't hear this being mentioned anywhere, and this has been going on for over a week now. It's been going on for over a week. This butchering in Jabalia camp. You look at that image and you remember that image well. I want you to. I want it to be burned into your minds. I mean, not you specifically, because it's not like you've done anything wrong the way that I just said it. But still, as the saying goes, I want it to be burned into your minds. Here it is. I found it. I found the video.
الدبابات واليهود آخر الشارع هذا. أنا في نقطة خطيرة. آخر الشارع هذا. آخر الصفطاوي. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل على كل شخص بتطلع علينا. أنت قادر أقل ما فيها إنك تنصرنا ولو بفيديو، بكلمة، بفيديو صغير على صفحتك. الناس اللي بيقول عن حالهم أنا مشاهير، وين أنتوا من شمال غزة؟ يا أخوان، شمال غزة لأول مرة بنمر في ظروف زي هيك. اتقوا الله فينا. احنا مش طالبين منكم اللي بتقدروا عليه اعملوه. انشروا فيديوهات، اعملوا هاشتاجات، اعملوا اي اشي. احنا هنا بنضيع. مش عارف ايش اتكلم واحكي لكم اكتر من هيك. بتشوفوا على شاشات التلفاز وبتعملوا حالكم مش شايفين. انا ما بدي تعيط علي، ولا بدي تزعل علي، ولا بدي تزعل علينا. اعمل اي شيء بتقدر عليه. لو هاشتاج عملته ممكن تغيره باذن الله سبحانه وتعالى. اهل شمال قطاع غزة مئات من شمال قطاع غزة في جباليا، مئات محاصرين في بيوتهم، ما عندهم اكل، ما عندهم مية. بناشدوا الناس وبناشدوا العالم وبناشدوا الصليب الاحمر يدخلوا لهم اكل، يدخلوا لهم شرب. في ناس متصوبين ما حدش قادر يروح يطلعهم.
I don't know why, but that video just stuck with me, I don't know. Anyway, we'll end on that note. I think we'll end on that note for this segment. So, let's talk Lebanon. Let's talk Lebanon. Let's talk Lebanon. I mean, these headlines are some scandalous crap if I've ever seen anything. Okay? I know I just said we'll talk Lebanon. We will in a way. We will in a way. Okay, just give me a second. Give me a second. These headlines are truly some of the most scandalous crap that I've ever read in my life. Let's unpack. Exhibit A, Sky News. There's going to be a lot of that in this one. So, the headline reads, Israel names teenage soldiers killed in Hezbollah drone attack as 23 die in Gaza school strike. Okay, first of all, this headline is a grammatical atrocity. Why is 23 die in quotation marks, and then the other, the teenage soldiers killed are not? are you saying I should believe everything that Israel says without question? They don't get any quotation marks. I'm just trying to establish what is going on here. You know, as a journalist, I'm trying to understand why another journalist would write this. What is going on here? Okay, that's number one. Number two, why are they killed and they die? Especially when you said one is an attack and the other is a strike. Okay, so those are synonyms. Yes. You surely can't mean teachers going on strike and then 23 people just died. No, you mean an Israeli IDF strike, a bombing. Yes. So they were killed. They didn't just die. They were killed in a bombing, an IDF bombing. Yes. Okay. So why are you using a different verb? I mean, again, there are so many questions. There are so many questions here. I really don't have time and all day for this, but you just an atrocity of a headline. And again, why hold on a second. You just said, you just told me that it's a Gaza school strike, okay? And yet you said 23 died. 23 what? 23 goldfish? 23 hamsters? Who died at this school? Because you say teenage soldiers in the first sentence. Israel names teenage soldiers. Well, are you talking about night school? Is this a school for adults? Then they're not teenagers in this Gaza school. The 23 that died, that just dropped dead of, I don't know. They had bubonic plague. They just died. They all had heart failure and dropped dead in the same second. Again, the way that they just like Israelis are teenagers even when they're in the army and they're soldiers, but we don't want to tell you that they're soldiers. We want you to have empathy for them. And they get killed. They never drop dead and just randomly, die. By the way, here are their names and photographs. Think I'm joking? No. Literally, here are their names and photographs. Fuck the 23 people that just dropped dead in Gaza school. Who cares about them? Civilians.
And the 4 soldiers that have died have now been named. All of them were just 19 years old. They are Sergeant Omri Tamari. In addition to that, Sergeant Yosef Hieb, Sergeant Yoav Agmon, and Sergeant Alon Amite, as I said.
Oh, that's just fascinating. Can you give me the date they were circumcised as well? Who the fuck cares what their fucking names are? Am I watching Israeli television or is this Sky News? Why do I care what the first names of 4 IDF soldiers are? Have you ever done this for British soldiers that have been killed in Afghanistan or Iraq? Which would also be kind of like weird because we invaded those countries. Why are you eulogizing them? But okay, why are you reading the names and showing me the photographs of Israeli soldiers on Sky News on British television? What on earth is going on? Why don't you give us the first names and the last names and the photographs of Lebanese paramedics? Are they not good enough for you? What is this crap? I mean, it's like she's about to break down and cry. Look at her.
And the 4 soldiers that have died have now been named. All of them were just 19 years old. They are Sergeant Omri Tamari. In addition to that, Sergeant Yosef Hieb, Sergeant Yoav Agmon, and Sergeant Alon Amite. As I said, all 4 of them just 19 years old. And the 4 soldiers.
It's not over. It's not over. Look at this. Here's another clip on Sky News. Sky News strikes again.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, not a lot of concrete detail has come out at the moment, but the figure of the number injured is very high. It's been reported 67 people have been injured, a number of them.
67 people. What happened? Was it a Taylor Swift concert? Seriously, just I'm not trying to be funny here. Just think of this rationally. You're watching a serious news program and there's 67 people. What happened? Were they all trying to rescue a cat from a tree and they all fell? They wobbled off of a ladder? Who are these people? How did they get injured? What's going on?
Around 4 or 5 at the moment is the number, critically so. Beyond that, there is not a lot of information, which tends to imply that there is more to come out. It's been
Jesus, I mean, how can you be more vague? There's not a lot of information, but that tends to imply that more is coming out. What does that sentence mean? Yes, I guess. I mean, unless like you're, what? I've never heard anything so dumb in my life. There's not a lot of information, which tends to mean that more is going to come out. How do you know that? What, you won't tell us what's happening. You won't tell us what's happening.
Put down to a Hezbollah drone that perhaps wasn't detected.
Okay, it's a drone. Okay, so there was a drone coming, and it hit 67 people. Who are these people?
By Israel's defense system, so wasn't shot down. You know, assuming those numbers are correct, 67 injured, a number of them critically, I'm pretty sure that would make it the biggest drone attack, or even the biggest attack by Hezbollah on Israel over the last year. Now, a lot of them have been taken to hospitals around the region, around the north. There's been a lot of sirens in the north over the last hour or so. So there seems to be some pretty heavy Hezbollah missile barrages into northern Israel. But 67 injured is a lot, particularly when you.
Okay, so I'll save you the next 2 minutes. This goes on for another 2 minutes with injured people, and not once not once do they mention that these people are soldiers. So if you have no clue what is going on, and you just turn this on, you would think that 67 random human beings, they could be at a Katy Perry concert. I don't know, did I say Taylor Swift? Okay, whatever, a Taylor Swift concert. They were in the supermarket. You have no idea who these people are, but they never mention that they're soldiers. Don't you think that's like a key piece of information? Again, forget what side you're on. I'm talking about just communicating, this really breaking story, because you're telling us there's not much to go off of. Well, okay, again, you could start by who did what to who. That would help a lot. No, nothing. Okay, so again, it's really weird, because when they want you to know that they like to basically to stir up emotions, they tell you, oh my God, they're not just soldiers, they're teenage soldiers. We even have their first names and their photographs for you. Look. But when they don't want you to know, for some weird reason, because you just said it's the biggest one, so I would think you'd want people to know, wouldn't you? They just fail to mention it. It's not written here. It says the number of people wounded. The number of people wounded. And then, again, for 3 minutes, they're just going on and on and on about 67 people that you wouldn't have the faintest idea. You wouldn't have the faintest idea that these are soldiers. Now, again, if you're okay with that or you're not okay with that, I don't care. I didn't ask you. I'm just showing you how the media, at the right moment, they'll give you the information, and they do have it. He's pretending there's not a lot of information. It's 67 people that have been randomly struck. No, he knows. And I'll tell you why he knows. Because when you're not allowed to publish the figures and the identities of people that have been wounded or critically wounded in these attacks, it's because they're soldiers. That's protocol. It's a military censor. Do you understand? It's something they have from British colonial times. They've kept that in Israeli law. It's martial law. It's the army is allowed to gag the press. Again, Israelis tell you they're a democracy. They are not a democracy. The army has the final say on what gets published in Israel. Fact. Period. Okay? It's a British law, and they've kept it ever since 1945. It's still there. That's a fact. So they know that it's 67 soldiers, and they won't tell us for some reason. And I'm just showing you how interesting that is, because just a day later, they have no problem telling us when the soldier is out. Okay, so you have the names. When you have the names, you're ready to stir emotions. When you have the names, you're ready to do that when they're Israelis. But the Lebanese paramedics that have been killed, and when I say killed, I mean assassinated, hunted. Even on Sky News, on this channel, on the same channel, they were saying one paramedic crew in Lebanon was struck by Israel. Then another one came to rescue them. They were struck as well. And then the third crew that came to rescue them was struck as well. Well, holy shit. Look, you've got all the details. You know who struck who. You know when it happened, where it happened. Everything is there. Why don't you show us their names? Why don't you show us their photographs? Are we not, we're not allowed to be, you won't keep us abreast? We're not allowed to be illuminated by this knowledge that you've gathered? Please, I would love to see their names and photographs, since they save lives, they work as paramedics. Who would object to that? Or is it because they're Lebanese that you won't show us? And they're not Israelis? Is that the factor? Because I never, ever see any soldiers of any army, even the US Army, even the UK Army, have their names and photographs shown on the television. I mean, Jesus Christ, you know, the bias is just so nasty. It's so nasty and clear. It's unbelievable. It is crazy. And I'm coming back to this. I'm coming back to this tweet because after classifying Hind Rajab as a 6-year-old lady, anything does go. Honestly, I don't even know what to say. Whether that was worse when they killed Hind Rajab and called, that's the girl who was shot with 300 bullets, and they called her a 6-year-old lady, or this one in Lebanon, right? A 2-year-old girl and a 16-year-old woman. So that's a 16-year-old girl. She's suddenly a woman, right? But when we're talking about Israeli soldiers, they refer to them as teenagers, as teenage soldiers. Okay, well, why not teenage girl is killed in Lebanon? What's wrong with teenage girl? I mean, again, the contrast is so weird. And then they remind me of this thing in the West Bank from January. Again, who strikes? Sky News strikes again. Just listen to the clip. It's amazing.
The border checkpoint, you can see a car going through and ramming some of the police that were actually manning that checkpoint. The video we're going to freeze shortly, but the two people, a man and a woman in the car, subsequently they were killed by the police, but it looks like accidentally a stray bullet found its way into the van ahead, and that killed a 3 or 4 year old young lady. So tragic events in the West Bank. This happened at the border check.
a 3 or 4 year old lady. Oh, shit. I didn't know you could be a 3 or 4 year old lady. What the hell is that?
But it looks like accidentally a stray bullet found its way into the van ahead, and that killed a 3 or 4 year old young lady. So tragic events.
A 3 or 4 year old young lady. Oh, okay. As opposed to a 3 or 4 year old lady. I mean, it's comical at this point. Like, forget everything. Forget everything about the Israeli soldiers. Forget that. This just by itself is unbelievable, really. A 3 or 4 year old young lady. Wow. A 3 or 4 year old young lady. My mind is never going to digest this sentence. I will never digest this to the day I die. A 3 or 4 year old young lady. Wow. I mean, if I were a comedian, I'd just consider myself out of business, really. It just how can you beat these people? They are working on a level that our brains cannot even comprehend. This is it's not comedy gold. This is like comedy rubies and gems and platinum, Wow. No, but this is really messed up, honestly. And here's another one. So this is from today, okay? So Professor Abu Khalil directed my attention to this, okay? So Sky News, again, here we go again. I swear to God, you would think I picked these all out. Like I have a bone to pick with Sky News. I swear to God, I did not go for Sky News. I swear to God. So it says, breaking, the UK has announced sanctions against several Iranian senior military figures and and organizations following Iran's multiple rocket attack on Israel on October 1st. Okay, and then there's like a picture of just stuff burning and everything. Now, if you've been tuned into the program for the last 2 hours, you recognize that burning footage, because that is from when Israel bombed Al-Aqsa Hospital in Gaza just last night, 24 hours ago, not on October 1st, on October 14th. And so 2 weeks later, right? Again, and burned 5 people alive, right? Including Shaban and his mother. And so people on Twitter added context, said this picture is not of Iran's multiple rocket attacks. It is actually of an Israeli airstrike on a hospital tent camp in Gaza, as shown within the Sky News link, based on a photo from Reuters. So, you know, the way that they managed to make the photo appear is basically by stuffing it down in the same article somehow, or maybe it's on a ticker. You know, sometimes they'll have multiple boxes for various stories. Maybe it's a bug. Maybe, you know, maybe we should give Sky News the benefit of the doubt. But should we really give them the benefit of the doubt after the clips that I just showed you? I think the benefit of the doubt just ran out of the room, is headed in the other direction. So no, I don't think we should give Sky News the benefit of the doubt. I think we should give them all of the doubt and nothing but the doubt. Jesus Christ, how can you lie like this for a living? How can you lie like this so casually? It's unbelievable. I kind of wish I had this level of shamelessness. I mean, it's so bold-faced. It's so bold-faced. I don't know how these people do it. I really don't know how they do it. How do they take themselves seriously? This a 3 or 4 year old young lady. No, wait, did I say? I'm done. Really. But we go back to you know. You'll never see Lebanese paramedics have their photos shown on there. You'll be lucky. You know, you can go and join the British Army, and you can go and do the SAS fitness test and join the regiment, right? And you can be killed like paragliding off a goddamn C1, you know, like a C-130 Hercules on a motorcycle in night vision goggles. And you know, you could die on the most secret, top secret mission the UK has ever issued, and you will never have your photograph shown on television as a British soldier. But as an Israeli, for some reason, they will read out your first name and your last name and show your photograph, and just like, you know, the Sky News presenter will cry for you. But you could be James Bond, and no one is going to do that shit for you in the UK. Don't you find that weird? You could be James Bond, and no one will do that for you. I'm serious. Unreal. It's like... Anyway, let's talk about Lebanon. So, here, you guys should be able to see this window. Yeah, okay, you should be able to see that now. So let's get into it. So we talked a little bit earlier about how Israel is shooting at UNIFIL, at UN Peacekeepers that are stationed in South Lebanon. And we talked about how, you know, nothing is being done. Of course, the UN is not going to do a thing. And you know, Joe Biden will, of course, say some words here and there. But what I wanted to focus on for a little bit is what's been happening in Lebanon itself. Okay, forget the peacekeepers for a second. Let's look at the civilian population, because Israel hasn't just been bombing, you know, like here and there. No, they've killed 2,000 people. They've killed 2,000 people in the last 2 weeks. It's over 2,000 people already. Okay, and it's funny because if you go and look at how the French have been covering this, and I bring up France because France is France considers Lebanon to be the closest country to them in the region, or used to anyway. You know, maybe that's a little bit too De Gaulle, right? Or Jacques Chirac for today's generation of politicians. I speak like I'm 80 years old or something. No, but seriously, you should hear how they speak, because if even France is speaking like that about Lebanon, then you can gauge how badly it is in the rest of Europe. So if you go and you watch French media, it is really horrific. It's like, oh, there are no innocent civilians in Lebanon. They're all, you know, they all deserve to die, blah, 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 blah. You know, it's kind of like the same regurgitated propaganda. Like, everybody deserves to die. They are all, etc. You know, they're all terrorists, and on and on. And just today, here's what Israel got up to. They went and bombed a Christian village up in the north. Not even in the south, which is the H-word stronghold, right? They went all the way up in the north and bombed a Christian Maronite village. They killed at least 18 people. It was 18 people. Now it's 21, actually. It's 21 people that they killed. Here's what it looks like. I mean, just decimated, you know, just decimated. And here I'll scroll up. I'll scroll up here so you can see a little bit about this, okay? So 21 killed and 8 other people wounded in the attack in the Itu village. There's actually a million ways to spell and pronounce the name of this village in English and in Arabic, so I'm not even going to bother with this one, really. Just so some people put a ghain in front of it, some people put a qaf. I guess, you know, they don't, no one really knows the original spelling of it. It's that old, yeah. Which kind of goes to show you how disgusting it is when they bomb these places, because, you know, they're destroying communities that are thousands of years old, so they can pretend that, you know, that they're originally from there. But okay, this is a Christian majority area, okay, and I've been trying to fetch a map for you guys, but just to give you an idea, I found one of this is from the BBC, okay, and this is not even from today. This is from October 7, 8, 9, somewhere around then. Okay, just look at how many times. Okay, look at how many times Israel bombed Lebanon in that one single day. Okay, so that's between October 6th and 7th, 2024. Yeah, just in a span of 24 hours. Okay, just look, all the red dots. That is one single day of Israeli strikes in Lebanon. One single day. You get the idea? So, I mean, it's quite unbelievable, really. And it goes all the way to the other end of the country. Literally all the way to the north of Lebanon, to the other end of the country. So, just to come back to today's story, okay, with Rittu. I showed you the videos, and, you know, it's like, they're just going up and down the country, bombing the crap out of it. I mean, if you look at here, this is in the south of Lebanon. They're blowing up a mosque, and I should say perhaps the right word is detonating, because they've rigged it up. It's a controlled demolition, and it looks exactly like what they're doing in Gaza, right? The building is completely safe. They've searched the building. They know it's safe, and then they go and they plant explosives in it, and they walk all the way to set up a camera and then film themselves blowing it up. right? And I saw this is in Nabatiev. This is look, this is a tweet from one man. Said, Central Nabatiev ruins many childhood and family memories under this rubble. My father was laid to rest here. I'm lost for words. This is really barbaric. This is from October 12th. Okay, so that's in southern Lebanon. This is these are also in other towns across Lebanon. I mean, it's really kind of just to show you, just to give you an idea of what's been going on, right? Because yeah, I mean. Something that went under people's radar. Of course, they won't talk about this a lot in the media, but I think it's worth highlighting. Is this article they published in the Jerusalem Post, okay? And then they deleted it all of a sudden. I don't know why they just deleted it. Usually they'll kind of like play with the headline or something, but they really didn't want people seeing this one. And this was posted on September 25th, okay? And what does it say? It says, is Lebanon part of Israel's promised territory? Well, I mean, you know, now that you mention it, why not? If you look at the photo, I know I'm playing around here because it's obviously an atlas that's been folded or a book. But maybe Myanmar and Laos are also part of Israel's promised territory. I mean, why not just take over the whole planet while you're at it, you know? Why not? Why not? You know, a little bit of Libya, you know, just keep going, keep stretching, you know? Make yourself at home. Please, literally, make yourself at home. There's a good clip from an Arte documentary. This is from Smotrich, right? The finance minister. Not that long ago. I think it just came out last week, right? He feels actually that they should go perhaps further than just Lebanon. You know, after all, Lebanon is very tiny. Okay, so you know, I think it's quite unfair of us to just offer Lebanon. You know, that's not fair, is it? Lebanon is very, very small. Listen to what Smotrich has to say.
אני רוצה מדינה יהודית. שזה אומר מה? מדינה יהודית. זה נורא נורא מורכב. זו מדינה שמתנהגת לפי עולם הערכים של העם היהודי.
הריבונות של ישראל מתחילה בים ונגמרת בנהר. בשלב הזה או שבעצם אנחנו גם יוצאים את עבר הירדן? בשלב הבא.
בסדר, לאט לאט. כתוב בחז"ל שעתידה ישראל, עתידה ירושלים להתרחב עד דמשק. רק ירושלים, עד דמשק.
Bezalel Smotrich a une vision maximaliste de la terre promise.
Oh, okay, wow. So hold on a second. Did I misunderstand? He's saying only Jerusalem?
בסדר, לאט לאט. כתוב בחז"ל שעתידה ישראל, עתידה ירושלים להתרחב עד דמשק.
Jerusalem well, I mean, you'll just have to move to Jerusalem then, right? Then you can fit inside of that municipality. Problem solved. Yes?
רק ירושלים, עד דמשק.
Bezalel Smotrich a une vision maximaliste de la terre promise. Elle inclut les territoires palestiniens, mais aussi des territoires en Jordanie, en Syrie, au Liban, en Irak, en Égypte ou encore en Arabie Saoudite. Une vision certes radicale, mais admise dans le débat public en Israël.
Well, I mean, I suppose that explains why you'd kind of want to bomb all over Lebanon, right? You want to remodel, so you just got to destroy what's been placed there, don't you? No, I mean, it's not a joke. Like these people like Smotrich, again, a very, very Semitic Middle Eastern name, they really do think like this. He's saying it to you, and he's being perfectly serious. He's being perfectly serious. You know, because the original thing is, okay, well, they want the settlers to go back. They want the 60,000, 80,000, 100,000, who knows what the real number is today, to go back to the north. Well, once again, there is no agreed upon border in the north. So who said that this is Israel's border at the north? I mean, the Lebanese don't feel that way. There is no clear border. There just isn't. Okay, number one. This is the first issue. So the second thing is that, let's say tomorrow morning, all of the 60,000, 80,000, 100,000, whatever the number is, Israeli settlers return to the north. Fine. What do you do with people like Smotrich? Again, this video that I'm showing you here, this just came out. This is new. This is not from 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And even if it were, this man is in government. He has power. This is a new video. This is a statement that he has made now in the last year. So even if all of these Israeli settlers return to the north, who said that they will stop at the north? He wants to go all the way to Damascus, according to him. Actually, much, much further than that. He wants to end up all the way in Saudi Arabia. Right? You see, when Israelis say from the river to the sea, they meant the other river and the other sea. I don't know if people understood that, right? This is, of course, the Greater Israel thing, but that's a whole other topic. That's a whole other topic, right? We can talk about that another time. I mean, I already have, but I want to relate that back to what's happening in Lebanon, which is to kind of show you that, you know, they say, okay, it's for Israel's security at the border. Okay, well, I showed you UNIFIL. They're firing at UNIFIL. Not only are they firing at UNIFIL, Netanyahu is threatening Guterres, who has literally no mandate over UNIFIL. It's not his job, and it's not within his powers to tell UNIFIL what to do. Guterres does not. Again, he's the Secretary General. He's not, you know, he does not reside over the preside over the Security Council. But he's telling him, get the peacekeepers out of the way, or we'll just keep shooting at them. And then they're shooting at the tripartite meeting place, basically saying, Lebanese army, you're also the enemy. And they're bombing all the way at the other end of the country. Again, I'll show you this BBC map from October 6th and so it's a 24 hours between October 6th and the 7th of this year, just a week old. Israel is at the bottom. They've gone all the way to the other end of the country. And today they've bombed a Christian village and killed 21 people. Okay? So is this really about what you're saying it is, about the settlers and about the H group? I mean, there are lots of question marks going on here. And when you have the massacre happening in Jabalia, in the Jabalia refugee camp, for example, just as one example, where they're trying to push everybody out, right? Where they've been going at this project of ethnically cleansing Gaza for a year now. Is it really just about that? When Smotrich, who's the finance minister, is openly saying, oh, we want to expand to Damascus. Again, just so you perhaps know, on the map, Damascus is indeed much farther than South Lebanon. Okay, not that much farther, but still it is. And again, I mean, forget Syria, man. Look, this is ending up on the other side of the goddamn peninsula, you know. So look, these questions need to be raised, because you are talking about something that is not interested in reason. Okay. About a government, about a regime, whatever you want to call it. They're not interested in reason. They don't care about the UN. They don't care about anyone, about civilians, Muslims, Christians, whatever. They don't care. This is what they care about. This thing on the screen right here. That's what they care about. You understand? Again, it's not my words. This is the Israeli finance minister in his own words. And you should go and watch the documentary. We've got Ben Gvir in it, who's another nut job, and is the security minister, right? So another man with power in Israel. So these questions have to be asked. They have to be indeed examined, and they need to be answered. And when the Jerusalem Post is publishing something like this, a week, 2 weeks before Israel declares an invasion of Lebanon, again, remember, this is not the first time. Yeah? The first was in 1978. And then they occupied it for 15 years afterwards. Anyway, the point is, why are they posting this article and then deleting it? Outright deleting it. It just is not there. It's gone entirely. I'm not saying they changed the URL and I can't find it. Believe me, it's gone. It's entirely gone. Very weird. Very shady. All of this happening at the same time, I don't think it's coincidence. And I think we'd best leave it at that because, again, I'll just ask the questions and I think it's more than enough, really. It's more than enough. They're kind of... The evidence is kind of right there in front of us, isn't it? So let me talk to you guys a little bit in a second about, you know, where things stand in the whole in the whole region, and again, thank you to all of you for the donations and for helping me get back a lot of the equipment that was taken from me and that I've had to replace. Thank you very much. Natalie says, hope you get your case dismissed and can focus on doing great work. Take care. Thank you. That's very kind of you. Thank you to everybody who's also signed up on Patreon and so on. And so let me just go ahead and kind of dive right into the next segment, you know. So here, you guys should be able to see this. Okay. Yeah, sorry, the page took a second to refresh. I think I can move it now. I think it should be able to move. Okay. Yeah, so give me a second. Okay, so the US are sending a new weapon system to the Israelis, and not just the weapon system, but the soldiers used to man it as well, okay? And this fits into, you know, or rather the question should be, how does this fit into what happened with Iran? What is Iran's strategic posture going to be from now on? And kind of just the whole region in general, right? Let's zoom out for a second and just look at things more broadly. Because if you're the United States and you're sending the THAAD system to the Israelis, it obviously means that you're anticipating some kind of response from the Iranians at a future point, okay? And again, it's getting kind of tiring saying a response to the response to the response. We have to break from this terminology at one point, you know, and decide who began. But anyway, so just to kind of read this very briefly. So THAAD stands for Terminal High Altitude Area Defense. It's basically missile defense systems. They're surface-to-air missiles that shoot down ballistic missiles, okay? So again, a ballistic missile is basically, it's got a predetermined trajectory. You fire it up, and then it comes down in a parabolic manner, in a parabolic fashion, and you already know where it's going to land approximately. A lot of the things that we saw fired in the last Iranian response on October 1st, these were mostly hypersonic missiles, far faster, and they could also be course corrected at the last second. If you compare that to what we saw on April 13th, I mean, it's a completely different caliber of weaponry. So the Americans are looking at that, and they're taking this much more seriously, as are the Israelis. But we still haven't seen a response to Iran's response of October 1st. Okay, so the Israelis claim they're still going to do something, but I'll just remind you, they said the same thing after April 13th, and they didn't really do anything. Okay, so this is perhaps maybe just the Israelis' way of guaranteeing that they don't ever get hit again the same way in the future. I'm not here to talk about that. This is not my main focus right now. Yes, obviously, this carries with it an escalation, but what kind of escalation? Is it because, you're going to have 100 American troops there, and if Johnny and Mike get killed by Iran, then, Joe Biden or whoever's in the White House by then is going to start a world war? No, this is not the main concern. You have to understand that what the Iranians, what the Israelis and Americans are really looking at, they're calculating how the Iranians are seeing things now. Now, this hasn't gone really reported for some reason in the media in the last couple of days, but it is very interesting, to say the least. Okay, so this is the 3 points. Okay, the first one, the Iranians are expected to launch something of a much stronger attack the next time, whenever that is. And the Americans and Israelis are taking that seriously. Okay, we've got through that. That's why they're sending the THAAD system. The second point is that the Iranians are threatening, or rather stating and indicating, that they're willing to recalculate their strategic posture. What does that mean? That could mean that they might develop nuclear weapons. It doesn't necessarily mean that, but it could mean that. And I'll go more into detail on that in a second. And also, right now, this is breaking news from just a few hours ago. The Iranian foreign minister is basically saying, look, we're not interested in any more peace negotiations. Okay, I don't know if the Americans or the Israelis were expecting that or not, but that's the latest news. Okay, and this could relate to the whole nuclear issue, okay? Because most people, when they read this, they think it's only related to what's going on in Gaza and so on. No, you have to understand that when the Iranians are negotiating regarding the nuclear issue, they don't view themselves as negotiating with the UN. Or the IAEA, and obviously the JCPOA has many people in it. It has the Russians and the Chinese and the Germans and so on who are part of that too. Yes, but they mainly view the IAEA as being controlled by the West. That is the Iranian perspective, and it's not completely unfounded either. So the point is, right now the Americans and the Israelis are going, well, what does it, does that include the nuclear issue? And if it does include the nuclear issue, to what capacity? And you have some very good stuff on this, both in Al Jazeera and also in Foreign Policy, going over what that means for Iran to recalculate. Because the way the Iranians have approached the nuclear program before is they basically look at it as it's like it's like a sweet spot, if you will, if you want to call it that. It's a sub-threshold level. What does that mean? It means like we're going to get all the tools ready that we need to make a nuclear bomb if we have to make a nuclear bomb, but we're not going to make the nuclear bomb, right? So it's kind of like the best of both worlds. You get to have the technology and make it dual use at the drop of a hat. In real world terms, that means 6 months, 12 months, of course, in minimum. But at the same time, you kind of show the world, well, look, I'm not a threat because I literally don't have a nuclear weapons program. which is also true, right? And again, I've done more than my fair share of JCPOA coverage, so go watch the playlists. But that really is their strategic outlook, their strategic posture for a nuclear program, and it always has been. It's been that way for the last couple of decades. You have to remember, in Iran, Iran is not just like a state that has the capacity to build a nuclear weapon and is not using that. It's a state that has, there's a religious fatwa, which is a religious decree issued by Ayatollah Khamenei against nuclear weapons. So it's a religious sin to build a nuclear weapon. It's not something you can just, you can't go around it or forego it. It really is there. You have actually right now, if you go and look in the news, you've got a block of MPs in Iran, in the Majlis, lawmakers in Iran, who are basically, they putting together a letter and asking him to forego the fatwa and to basically, to roll it back, to reverse it. So, because they view Iran as facing an existential threat because of everything that's happened in the last year. Okay, so my point is that this announcement here about ceasing peace talks, it could have that nuclear dimension to it as well. Once again, you could tell very easily if someone's building a nuclear bomb, especially today, because of not just faster intelligence gathering capabilities from human sources, but also you can observe these things with seismic, with seismographs. You can tell, right? Literally just by watching for mini earthquakes, if someone's testing a nuclear bomb, the regularity at which they're testing it, you can gauge quite well whereabouts they are. And I think even I can't remember who was saying this recently, which U.S. official it was. Was it Burns by chance? Let me just look this up quickly. No, it might have been Kerry, actually. I can't remember who it was. Give me a second. Oh, yeah, it was Burns. Yeah, it was, it's a CIA director, Burns, right? So he was saying just a week ago, 7 days ago, that Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapons program. Okay, so as much as the Israelis want to, go off about how they do, no, they don't. And even the CIA chief is saying that. And if the CIA chief is telling the truth, that means the Israelis are really lying, Anyway, so just to go back to this Al Jazeera article, which I found as quite foreboding in a way, and also quite informative. I wanted to read it to you because it talks about how an Israeli attack on Iran's nuclear facilities could backfire. And I put this, of course, in the context of what's been happening in the last couple of weeks, where you have Trump and Biden kind of exchanging, like who wants to be Israel's who wants to do more for Israel? They're basically saying, oh, well, we should bomb the nuclear sites and the energy sites in Iran. And then some of them are saying, no, we shouldn't do that, but we should be really tough on Iran, blah, blah, blah. I mean, like as if any, either one of them is any different. I mean, really at this point. Anyway, let me read this to you, okay? So they say here, since Iran's October 1 missile strike on Israel in response to the killing of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah in Beirut and Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, there's been much speculation about how Tel Aviv will retaliate. Some observers have suggested it could hit Iranian oil installations and others its nuclear facilities. US President Joe Biden's administration seems to oppose both options. What do you base that on? Honestly, what do you base that on? I mean, because if you base that on just what Biden publicly says, then it means nothing, because guess what? He lies like all presidents in the world, and he said he doesn't like what Israel is doing in Gaza, and yet he keeps giving them weapons. So I'm just trying to understand what that is based on, but fine. Yet has approved the deployment of THAAD, so that's the missile defense system I was telling you about, high altitude, and U.S. troops to Israel, possibly in anticipation of an Iranian response to an Israeli strike. Fine. And then they talk about how Trump wants Israel to hit the nuclear stuff first, and his son-in-law says the same. So, again, this sentence makes no sense to me. While Trump, Kushner, and other staunch Israel supporters are happy to cheer on an Israeli strike on Iran's nuclear facilities, So again, stop right there. How is Biden, not a staunch Israel supporter? Like, does committing genocide or like participating in a genocide not count as being a staunch supporter? I would probably count that as one of the most supportive, quote unquote, things that you could be, as an ally, of another country or state or colony or whatever. So again, how is Trump more of a staunch supporter than Biden? He isn't. He's just as much. So let's say he's equal, at the very least equal to Biden. They are at the very least equal. I don't know which one of them would end up being, more staunch, but they are both staunch. So whatever. Let us. So this writer gives us the example of Iraq. Okay, he says they likely know very little about the consequences of another such Israeli attack that targeted an Iraqi nuclear site. Again, not Iran, Iraq. Okay. So Israel's destruction of Iraq's French-built Osirak nuclear reactor in 1981 actually pushed what was largely a peaceful nuclear program underground and motivated Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein to invest in the pursuit of a nuclear weapon. An aggressive act against Iran's nuclear program will likely have a similar effect. So Iraq's nuclear program started in the 60s with the USSR building a small nuclear research reactor and providing it with some know-how. In the 70s, Iraq purchased a bigger reactor from France called Osirak and expanded its civilian nuclear program with significant French and Italian assistance. The French government made sure that technical measures were in place to prevent any possible dual use of the reactor, and it shared this information with the US, with Israel's closest ally. Iraq, which was a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and had its nuclear sites inspected regularly by the IAEA, was not on the brink of, quote-unquote, developing a nuclear weapon, as Israel falsely asserted. Nevertheless, the Israeli government, which was facing growing discontent domestically and a potential loss at the approaching legislative elections, decided to proceed with a preemptive strike. Yeah, because, that's always what you should do. When you're about to lose an election, just bomb someone. Anyway, on June 7, 1981, US F-15 and F-16 fighter jets, or I should say US-made, flew from Israel, refueled midair, and carried out a strike on the Osirak reactor, completely destroying it and killing 3 Iraqi civilians and 1 French engineer. The attack provoked nationalist fervor among Israelis that helped Prime Minister Menachem Begin, again, just like the scummiest terrorist scumbag, pinch a narrow victory in the elections 3 weeks later. A trove of declassified US documents released in 2021 demonstrates that Israel's strike did not eliminate Iraq's program, but rather made Saddam more determined to acquire a nuclear weapon. It also motivated more Iraqi scientists to sign up to work on their nation's nuclear program. As Iraqi nuclear scientist Jafar, again, when they romanize certain names, I can't tell, I guess it's Jafar, wrote in his memoir, the Israeli bombing of Tammuz, in other words, of Osirak, had infuriated many, and they were practically forming a line to participate in ending the Israelis' monopoly of nuclear weapons in the Middle East. They proved to be more valuable to Saddam than the hardware, the reactor that he lost in the attack. In the following years, Saddam's regime made nuclear activities clandestine and started reaching out to nuclear powers like Pakistan to seek assistance in developing capabilities that could be used to produce a nuclear weapon. It also tried to rebuild a destroyed reactor. These efforts slowed down only in the early 1990s due to the First Gulf War, which decimated Iraqi infrastructure, and the subsequent sanctions which drained state coffers. Now, when it comes to Iran, over the past few years, a number of Iranian nuclear scientists have been assassinated by Israel. Most recently, in November 2020, Fakhrizadeh, a nuclear physicist and high-ranking member of the nuclear program, was shot dead in an ambush near Tehran. Iran has accused Israel of carrying out this assassination and others in the past. I mean, we know the Israelis did it because they brag about it, so it's not really Iran accusing them, but fine, okay, if you want to frame it that way. While these assassinations may have killed key cadres, they have inspired a new generation of Iranians to pursue nuclear science, part of Iranian quote-unquote nuclear nationalism, emerging as a result of the constant attacks on Iran's nuclear program. The events since October 7, 2023 have further fueled this sentiment. A poll conducted between February and May of this year showed that not only has public support in Iran for a peaceful nuclear program remained incredibly high, but that now there is a growing public consensus the country should acquire a nuclear weapon. Some 69% of the respondents in the survey said they would support it. Clearly, Israel's actions so far are only increasing Iranian determination to continue its nuclear program. A strike on any of its nuclear facilities would make that determination even stronger. And if we are to go by the Iraqi example, it may drive the Iranian nuclear program underground and accelerate it towards the development of a nuclear weapon. Today, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu finds himself in his predecessor Begin's shoes. He is also leading a government widely criticized for various failures, including the one on October 7. He is also desperate to show the Israeli public a victory. But what Netanyahu is doing in Gaza and Lebanon now, and will do in Iran, will not bring victory to Israel. His strategy produces resentment in these countries and across the Middle East, which will help Iran and its allies rebuild swiftly whatever capabilities they lose to reckless Israeli strikes. Okay, I mean, look, I think there's some differences. First of all, with Begin and Netanyahu, some very big differences. Although yes, there are more similarities than differences. But nevertheless, the thing is with Iraq and Iran. I mean, I don't recall if there was a mention of the fatwa in this article. No, that must be the Foreign Policy magazine one. Anyway, so that's one difference between Iraq and Iran. You have that religious decree, which I mean, you have to deal with it. You can't just, choose to ignore it. You have to unroll it. You have to get enough support in the country and with lawmakers to pressure the Supreme Leader to unroll that. It's not going forward otherwise. There will be no credibility. Then Scott Ritter and we talked about this some years ago. It's somewhere on the channel about this specific point. But in addition to that, I don't know if you can compare Iraq and Iran in the same put them in the same boat in terms of missile capabilities, because Iraq never had the same kind of missile capabilities that Iran does today, and I don't think that both the West and Iraq viewed each other with the same kind of animosity that you have Iran and the West viewing each other, or if you will, Iran and Israel viewing each other. I mean, Israel, for example, look, he says it in the article himself that the guy was just looking for an election victory. Israel didn't think of Iraq as being some kind of existential threat or framing it as an existential threat within the public the same way that it is today. So my point is just that the Israelis, they're much more keen, or it's much more easier to drive this point home that no, actually the Iranians are a threat, an existential threat, and vice versa. And that it's just true for multiple reasons. It's easier to reach people today with media, with social media. That's number one, right? I mean, you could not reach or like, let's say it's Israel in the 1980s. You couldn't even draw that amount of public support from the wider West. If you wanted to, you couldn't even spread that propaganda the same way that you could today. Look at what's happening in Gaza. You've seen the images in front of you, and no one is like, no one feels disturbed by that in the West. That's how strong the propaganda is. So imagine how much you could, cultivate the Iranian boogeyman. They've been cultivating that boogeyman for 50 years now, right? In the US, Israel as well has been doing it, and in the wider West. So it would be much easier to start a wider war. And that is the problem here. That's the risk of it. So, I mean, I guess what the person who wrote this is trying to drive home is that the point they're trying to drive home is basically that, look, if you go and you strike the Iranians, you might damage some of the equipment, but you're just going to make them even want a nuclear program even more. But I guess it's true, but they already have the nuclear program. It's already there anyway, and that is because it fails to take into account, although it does to some degree with the assassinations, but that's only one part of the picture, that the West already drove Iran to that point. The West already drove Iran to that point, and now I tie in all three of them together. I'm bringing together my orchestra. That's why you're having this statement. Look, this is from today, okay, from the foreign minister saying we're done negotiating about the region. And again, I don't know if this includes the nuclear issue, but it could. It very well could. Okay, and how do we relate those three together? Well, genocide in Gaza was allowed to happen. Those assassinations of the scientists were allowed to happen. No one did anything about that. Nuclear deal 1 was signed. I mean, JCPOA round 1 was signed, implemented, checked, cameras, seals, inspectors, everything, full compliance, even for a year after Trump pulls out. You still put sanctions on us. Then we tried to negotiate it again, and you did nothing. And then you allowed Israel to go and blow up all the nuclear facilities. Well, not all of them, but, you know, they sabotaged the centrifuges with Stuxnet, and then they went after Natanz again, and then they've attacked a bunch of them. At one point, it was so silly, they even took out one of the cameras, and then, you know, they tried to blame Iran, like, for a camera that Israel had blown up in the facility. You know, so this, and all these board of governors statements that they've been putting out. So it's like, it's really a giant pile of crap. Like, forget everything that's happened in the last year. Forget all of that. It's really a giant list of things. And the Iranians were already at least 60%, at least 60% purity already before October 7th. At least. Right? As a matter of fact, hold on, I'm just double checking something else now. Because you know, the limit on the deal, it was 3.67%, then they pushed it to 20, then it went up to 40, 60, and yeah, I think they could even hit. So there was a row afterwards if they enriched it to 84, right? They found some particles at some place the IAEA claimed, and so on. But that's besides the point, because if you can go to 60%, and everybody is agreed that Iran has already reached 60%, the Iranians admit it. If you can get to 60, it's much easier to go from 60 to 90, which is what you would need for a bomb. And it's one thing you need for a bomb. It's not enough by itself. But my point is, it's much easier to go from 60 to 90 than it is from 3.67 to 60. That is a massive, massive leap. And they've already done it years ago. So, you know, I think it's just kind of, you know, it's just kind of silly at this point, because that ship has already sailed. This idea like, oh yeah, we're going to cripple the Iranian nuclear program in its infancy. You know, this obsession they have with like killing children, or euphemisms of that. No, that ship has sailed, and it has sailed. Objectively speaking, really, just objectively, you can literally measure it. I mean, it's a science. It's gone. That ship has sailed, because that subpar threshold, you know, not subpar. What am I saying? That sub threshold. It really is kind of a strategic sweet spot. And, you know, right now, when you're talking about hitting the nuclear sites, I mean, I don't know what it would get you. I really don't know what it would get you, because they've had years now to go in and do this diplomatically with the IAEA, and they've just been kind of like, you know, screw it, you know, whatever. We'll let Israel just keep like killing the scientists, and we'll kind of bleed them with sanctions. And the sanctions haven't worked. So now they're in a situation where they want to show like Iran as being kind of a nuclear threat, but they can't really do that, because the CIA director himself is coming out and saying there's no weapons program. You see what I mean? So they've kind of they've spun themselves into a nice little knot here, and or twisted themselves rather. But you know, in addition to that, let's leave the whole nuclear issue aside. Let's drop the whole nuclear issue and put it aside. Let's focus on energy. And let's look at the map again, okay? Let's say you go after their you know, you go after the refinery at Abadan, you go after all the major energy hubs and everything, okay? And then what? Will that fix it? No, it won't. Just look at the geography, man. There's a choke point here, right there. This is a choke point, Strait of Hormuz. And right there is Iran. All they have to do is shut this down. The Iranians, all they have to do is shut this down. And they've threatened to do so in so many words. Okay, they have said they will in so many words. Not explicitly, but in so many words. They've hinted at it. And just think of this, logically, because if you're thinking, oh, well, Kuwait is going to help us, Saudi Arabia is going to help us, the UAE was going to help us, and for gas, we have Qatar who can help us. Are you really sure about that? I mean, I wouldn't be so sure. I'd really worry, because as soon as the Iranians do that, even if logistically, you had a teleporter that could just teleport the barrels of oil, really, like I'm not joking, like an actual, you can actually transpose them in a quantum bloody state and move them from one place to the other. It's not going to help you, because the prices are going to crash. You will cause a something worse than 1973. It'll be way worse than 73. Because all people need to hear is, oh my God, world's most important oil shipping lane choked off. Now again, not all of the oil and gas in the world comes through here. Okay, let's be very clear. But it's still the most important one. Okay, that's all they need to hear, and it's goodbye. So I don't know if that's really smart, and I think just strategically, from a strategic point of view, they might be saving that for a rainy day. And Trump and Kushner, they say go for the nuclear ones, and Biden is. I mean, these are stupid games. Just why don't you go for the negotiating table? Why don't you go and do some diplomacy instead of going for the buttons all the time? Again, that's not a ship that sailed. That is not a ship that has sailed. You don't have to have an oil crisis or a gas crisis. I mean, I'm just saying. This is. There's a reason why they've tried to control this area a lot with sinking, like you've had what are called tanker wars, or what I call tanker wars, and basically you've had Israelis trying to sink Iranian fuel ships, and then or sink Iranian fuel ships on the way to Syria and Lebanon. And monopolize this area. And this is going back a couple of years now. Okay, this is nothing to do with what's happening right now, although it does tie into it. My point is just that everybody recognizes the strategic aspect of it. I don't understand what the Americans think that Israel is going to do for them. In such a case, it's really not going to look good. Anyway, let's leave it at that. There's definitely not gonna, definitely won't be any good developments with them sending American troops there. I mean, really, just this is point number one. Point number one. Nothing good is going to come of that. Nothing good is going to come of that for anyone. Never mind everything else. But it's interesting watching Al Jazeera and watching especially American outlets like Foreign Policy put out these pieces right now about Iran's nuclear program. I don't think it's the usual, oh, Iran is building a bomb kind of nonsense that we've been hearing for the last 20, 30 years. There's a big element of that in there. Yes, for sure. But they are changing their strategic posture. And the fact that they're sending this THAAD over there, I think it means they understand that, whatever is coming next is going to be an escalation. And that's not good. You should be sending diplomats, not more missile defense systems to get away with more whatever it is that's coming next. Assassinations, genocide, I don't know. Like, it's basically, you're basically kind of saying, like, well, I'm ready for an escalation and I don't care. Well, I mean, I don't know how that serves anyone, but okay. So we'll leave it at that. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for supporting the show. And thank you again for all the kind words in the comments and in the comment section. And I'm very grateful for the donations. Thank you to Dina for the very generous, kind donation. And for helping out with the equipment, and for me to replace everything that was kind of taken. I'm very grateful. So thanks, guys. Take care. Ma salame. Good night. Bye-bye.
A is for
all men and women created by go. You know the thing.
B is for
I'm beginning to see why your wife left you.
C is for
Corn Pop was a bad dude, and he ran a bunch of bad boys.
D is for
Don't worry, I'm so serious. Children, I love to hear them.
E is for
An excuse to walk by the dealer and say, no, I'm not going to be a mule. I got something to do. I got to go do boom, boom, boom.
F is for
Friend, and she's a friend. She's been my friend in and out of public life.
G is for
Go to Joe 30330.
H is for
Hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun, and the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down.
I is for
I'm a Democratic candidate for the United States Senate.
J is for
Just look at the record.
I have President Biden, Vice President Biden.
Well, I tell you what, if you look at my record and you still doubt about my commitment, then you should vote for somebody else.
K is for
Kids jumping on my lap, and I've loved kids jumping on my lap.
L is for
The lion, dog, face, pony soldier.
M is for
Make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night, the phone. Make sure the kids hear work.
N is for
NATO.
O is for
The only African-American woman that's ever been elected to the United States Senate.
P is for
Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
R is for
Rest her soul, and although your mom's still alive.
S is for
Send a text to the word united.
T is for
Truth over facts.
U is for
Union workers, the UAW took incredible cuts in their future.
V is for
I'll vote for somebody else.
All right, thanks so much.
W is for
Wait, you're getting nervous, man. Just calm down. It's okay.
X is for
Xi Jinping.
Y is for
And you ain't black.
Z is for
She's sleeping?
Women in our country has been classified as essential. So this is an issue.
By the way, this is my little sister Valerie, and I'm Jill's husband. Oh no, this is Valerie, you switched on me. This is my wife, this is my sister. They switched on me.